The Carolina Panthers have made a huge mistake by benching Bryce Young. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready. Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome in to the new Locked On NFL, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with the help of our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert Lauren Cox. On today's show, the Atlanta Falcons pull off an excellent comeback against the choking Philadelphia Eagles. Also, injuries are starting to impact NFL teams, and the Los Angeles Rams could be cooked. Also, we'll start with Bryce Young being benched in Carolina, a big mistake made by the Panthers. Do want to first thank you for making the Locked On NFL podcast your first listen of the day and for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Make sure that you tune in later to the Barbershop with Tony Wiggins here on Locked On NFL to get more NFL coverage. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Lauren, we are going to get started here with a clip from my guy Julian Council from the Locked On Panthers podcast, and boy, Julian has been through it.
It's David Tepper. He's the problem and will continue to be the problem here in Carolina, and why I have no hope for this organization to ever be anything other than an unmitigated disaster, because he has no clue what he's doing. Doesn't know. He has all the money in the world, and this really should have been the first red flag for us here locally when he decided his hedge fund, Appaloosa Management, he was not going to no longer be a part of that. He was going to move on, come here to Charlotte, and focus all his time and energy on the Panthers. That's when we should have known right then and there that we were effed. Because this guy has decided this is his pet project. This is the number one thing that matters to him. He wants to win. And look what he's done. He's taken a franchise that historically was about 500 and a team that's gone to the Super Bowl twice. He's taken him and put him into the bottom of the NFL.
I mean, listen, I understand being absolutely disgusted by what the Panthers has done, and I think they've made a huge, huge mistake here. So, number one, you bring Dave Canales in to fix Bryce Young. If you're benching Bryce Young, you're already admitting he can't do that. The reason you brought him in, he can't do it. Gave Dan Morgan the general manager job, or part of it, to bring in players to support Bryce Young. Sign $150 million worth of guards, bring in some more talent. And you're admitting, oh, what Dan Morgan did to try to help Bryce Young, he failed. So not only are you admitting that you failed drafting the number one pick in the trade that they made to do it, which, Lauren, obviously you know a lot about. What a miserable trade, one of the worst in NFL history as things stand now. But you're also admitting that the coach that you hired to do this one specific thing and the GM you hired to do this one specific thing, they aren't capable of doing it either. So from the top down, this is a disaster for the Panthers.
I agree that it's a disaster for the Panthers, but whether you admit it now in week 2 or admit it later in week 10 or week 12 or after week 17, like, isn't there an advantage to saying, you know, admitting your mistake now and saying, yeah, we screwed it up, and let's get it out of the way now so we can at least start to move forward, as opposed to maybe lying to ourselves or lying to the fan base by saying, hey, we still believe in Bryce Young. We still believe in Bryce Young for however many more weeks until it becomes too much to ignore. I mean, isn't there an advantage to at least getting out ahead of that a little bit?
Lauren, I don't think you're wrong about that, but let me tell you why you are still wrong about that. No, look, I'm just looking at it from a different way. So for the Panthers, to me, You roll with Bryce Young the rest of the season, no matter what. No matter what. And here's why. Number one, maybe he gets better. Maybe he gets better and you didn't completely ruin your organization with one of the worst trades of all time. Maybe he gets better. But if he doesn't, you can look back and say, no regrets. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we gave Bryce Young, right, exactly. We gave Bryce Young every ample opportunity to do this. We gave him 2 full seasons, and we can honestly look our fans in the face and say, we tried. We really tried. So to me, you're giving up too soon to figure that out. And the flip side of it, or the other way to look at it is, Lauren, what's Andy Dalton going to get you? A couple more wins. Maybe you don't lose the locker room, but ultimately your ceiling is lowered because you're going with a guy who you know is not the franchise, who you know can't lead you to a Super Bowl. And then the final layer is, if you play Bryce Young for 17 games and he's as bad as he is right now, you're going to have a much higher pick in the draft. And you can look your paying customers in the face and say, hey, it didn't go well, but we tried to give Bryce a fair chance. But really in the back of your head, you're saying, man, we need a new quarterback. Man, we need better talent on this team. And the best way to do it is get a high draft pick that we don't trade away, and playing Bryce Young, whether he gets better or he stays as bad as he is your best path forward to finding a true difference maker.
Listen, I covered a team that went to Andy Dalton over a young Justin Fields, so I know the pain that Carolina Panthers fans are going through here. But do you think there's any preservation of Bryce Young's potential future trade value by not having him go out there and flail for 10 to 15 more weeks this season? That are they looking long-term and saying, listen, Bryce was bad for these first 2 games, but maybe there's still enough there that another team will give up a 4th-round pick like Trey Lance got coming out of the 49ers to the Cowboys, or maybe even a higher pick than that, as opposed to saying, let Bryce Young be bad for 17 games and have 0 trade value down the line. Like, maybe there's a preservation there of like, hey, if other teams just don't see him for a while, maybe they'll kind of trick themselves into thinking, we can still fix him, even though the Panthers couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is a possibility, Lauren. We do have to acknowledge that as a possibility. So there is maybe, trying to find a way to get something out of him down the line. I'll answer your question with a question, though. One thing that we haven't mentioned here is sitting Bryce Young and letting him kind of recalibrate with the idea of putting him back in later. Dave Canales maybe kind of hinted at that in a weird press conference on Monday. Do you think there's any chance that Bryce may come back later in the season and be better?
Yeah, I don't feel like 10 games or whatever, like in season, is enough time for that level of like rehabilitation, build your confidence back up process. Like, I think if I'm Bryce Young and his agent, I'm looking more like on the Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield timelines of like, if I'm trying to be optimistic about, okay, Bryce, listen, things are bad right now, but we've seen other quarterbacks, even with Baker being the number 1 overall pick, have some struggles, not on the same level at all, but other quarterbacks have had struggles, taken some time on the bench as a backup, build your confidence back up and not have that same pressure to be the franchise savior, but maybe then go to another situation later on down the line, get some maybe better coaching, better receivers, better offensive line, and show everyone what they thought you would be coming out of the draft that maybe you just weren't quite ready for, or just weren't quite in the right situation for at the time. And he can still salvage his career in another place. But I don't think putting him back in the lineup after their bye week in week 12 is going to be a new Bryce Young at that point. Like, it feels like if you make this decision now, his Panthers starting career should be done.
Well, if I'm his agent, I'm saying, look, Sam Darnold, reclamation, Baker Mayfield, reclamation, and both of those quarterbacks looked pretty bad in Carolina. So that's how I would sell that if I was his agent. It's not you, it's the Panthers. And I do agree with you because, let's be honest, Lauren, how many relationships do you hear, oh, we're taking a break, and then things end up better? It's just not how life works. But with that being said, the Rams might be cooked after another big-time injury. And this time, it's Cooper Kupp. We're going to talk about that. Do want to remind you to tune in later with Tony Wiggins here on Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. On LinkedIn, you're going to have the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Also, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is the best place to buy tickets, period. All right. I'm going to an NFL game this weekend, and I bought my tickets on Gametime. Gametime's great, but now it's even better. They have a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. It's not just that, but they have a view from your seat so you know what you're going to be looking at. If you toggle on the feature, you can get all-in pricing on your tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Lauren, what time is it?
Game time.
Woo! All right, folks. Injuries have officially hit the NFL. All right, it is time. We're seeing people drop like flies right now. And we got two big-time injuries with Cooper Kupp of the Los Angeles Rams and Isaiah Pacheco of the Kansas City Chiefs. Which team is affected more? Honestly, Lauren, I got to say, it's the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, at this point, I don't know how the Rams can expect to have a competitive season. You look at some of the injuries that have just piled up for him. You had Puka Nacua, who got injured really before the season, and then the injury lingered into the season, and now he's out for a while. Cooper Kupp with an ankle on injured reserve. Jonah Jackson, their starting guard, has a shoulder injury. Starting safety, John Johnson, all of them are expected to miss extended time. They could all end up on injured reserve. This is an outright disaster for the Los Angeles Rams, and I'm just going to come out and say it. I do not think that the Los Angeles Rams can rebound from all these injuries. I just don't think it's going to be possible.
Yeah, it's really the compounding factors here with injury, right? You can lose one guy, and it's tough, but
of course,
next man up. But when the next man up is hurt, and at a few different positions, you're left without a receiver who's ever had 500 yards in a season in their career with the Los Angeles Rams, a wide receiver at least there. Like, it's not a pretty supporting cast for Matthew Stafford. And as great as Matthew Stafford has been, like, he's not in that tier of Patrick Mahomes quarterbacks where it's like, oh yeah, he can. It almost doesn't matter who you throw out there. Like, no, he needs some level of help there. And it's not just the pass catchers, it's the offensive line. Jonah Jackson is hurt for them as well. Like, at least for the Chiefs, like, yeah, they lose Pacheco, but they still have Samaje Perine in the backfield. You still, of course, have Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice. Like, it's a big hit to their running game. But as long as you have Patrick Mahomes, you always kind of feel like things are going to be okay there. They can lose Tyreek Hill and still win the Super Bowl. Like, they can get by, all things considered. But the Rams, just the hits keep coming now on both sides of the ball. A team that's already trying to overcome the offseason loss of Aaron Donald, that a lot of young players they're expecting to get better. Like, this was a team that felt like they were maybe overachieving a little bit at first, and now it's a tough road ahead of them. They're the 49ers in town this week. Like, even if these injuries are short term, it's 49ers and then at Bears, which is winnable, and then Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love might be back by that game, and then they get a bye week, and maybe they can get a little healthier by then. But if they start 1-4 in that stretch, that you just can't come back from that slow of a start.
Yeah, and some of the numbers where they say, you start out 0-3, you have this percentage to make the playoffs. Things are a little different now that there's a seventh team added. It does kind of change the equation a lot. But I agree with you there. I mean, the Rams can say next man up all they want, but it looks more like next man down. That's what it looks like in Los Angeles to me. And it's funny that you mentioned Matthew Stafford. I agree with you. He is not an elite level quarterback like a Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, even to me, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. Like he's not quite, I always call Matthew Stafford the day walker, which is a reference to, Blade, of course. I don't know if you're a big Blade fan here, but Matthew Stafford is a guy who I can't call him a game manager. He's way too talented for that. But I also can't call him an elite quarterback because he hasn't really been that. So he's kind of like an in-between there. And at the end of the day, that's just simply not any at his age too. You can't, maybe Matthew Stafford in his prime, but at this point with the injuries on the offensive line at wide receiver, there's no way that Matthew Stafford can lean this forward. Now you mentioned Isaiah Pacheco, which I get what you're saying, but I don't know if I fully agree. Let's hear from Chris Clark from Locked On Chiefs about this Isaiah Pacheco injury.
Running back Isaiah Pacheco is likely going to head to IR. He has a fractured fibula. Right now, the extent of the injury is not known. It will be something that will be looked at over the next couple of days to get more of an assessment of how bad the injury actually is. It's possible that he could be returned in late December or early January in time for the playoffs. Generally speaking, a fibula injury is going to be about a 12-week recovery period. So that's going to be something to watch. Right now, we don't have all the details. It is not out and available yet. They're still running some tests, but it is expected he is going to miss significant time, at least probably 3 months. So IR is definitely going to be something that they will be looking at with him. We will have more as soon as we get it, and I'm sure we will get more by the time we have Locked On Chiefs later today.
So the latest that I saw was 6 to 8 weeks, but you're talking about, a broken leg at the end of the day. I think, who knows how long that could be till it heals right, till the player is comfortable. It's, there's going to be a mental barrier with any injury, but I feel like sometimes, like when you break a bone like that, it's almost a little harder mentally than just a ligament and things like that, because it's like a snapping of a bone, it just has a different feel to it. But let me say this. I agree with you that Patrick Mahomes is the great equalizer and that the Chiefs are still going to make the playoffs and they'll probably have a high seed. And as you said it, they'll probably win the Super Bowl again for a third time. But we're seeing a big change in the NFL this year. I mean, passing touchdowns through 2 weeks are down 20. They're down like 60 from a couple of years ago. The NFL is going through that cyclical change where they start to run the ball more because of the too high shells. And I think that Isaiah Pacheco is more important to the Chiefs right now than he's been the last couple of years. So I think this is a bigger loss this year with the way the NFL is just playing out than it would be in his first 2 seasons.
That I agree with 100%. Like Pacheco is second on the Chiefs in targets and receptions this season. Like he's been, Patrick Mahomes has had to do so much checking down and throwing behind the line of scrimmage, and the running back has been a big part of that. I mean, that's why they made it such a priority, to add somebody like this in the backfield to keep making receiving backs a bigger part of this. I mean, Samaje Perine, another one of these guys they bring in because of their pass catching ability, because they know they don't have the same talent at wide receiver that they used to. So getting the running backs and the tight ends involved are a big deal. I think the thing I come back to is like, they bring in Kareem Hunt for a visit at the time we're recording this. Hasn't been signed yet, but that may happen. And you feel like, not that Hunt is going to come in and be 1,000-yard rusher right away, but the running back position just ends up being a little bit more replaceable than, the wide receiver position at this stage of the NFL. And between Hunt and Perine, you feel like you can piece together not a great running game, but like a good enough running game, and certainly running backs who can do something with the ball in their hand after the catch that you feel like, all right, like Mahomes will have enough of what he needs. And like Chris was saying, maybe by the time you get around to the playoffs, Pacheco is back and the regular season doesn't matter that much for the Chiefs. Once they hit the postseason, then they dial up to a different mode and you can be back to not full strength, but closer to full strength.
Yeah, that makes sense too. I mean, as my guy Alex Clancy says and said a lot yesterday, it's Patrick Mahomes until it isn't. And losing a starting running back isn't going to make us change our minds on that. But big Monday Night Football choke job by the Philadelphia Eagles. I can't wait to talk about it. I know that Tony Wiggins is going to talk about it too, so make sure that you tune back in for the PM edition of Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Look, FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook for a reason, and we've talked a lot about FanDuel, but this time I got something just a little bit different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers, I said all FanDuel customers, can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just looking ahead at the odds for the week, Thursday night football, the Jets are 6.5-point favorites against the Patriots. I do not think that's a smart line. I love the Patriots getting 6.5 against the Jets. If you like that, make sure that you visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook today. All right, Lauren, we are going to cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. We have talked about the Panthers making a big mistake with their benching of Bryce Young. Well, I think it's a big mistake, Lauren. I'll speak for myself on this one. Talked about some injuries hitting the NFL. The Rams are a mash unit at this point. The Chiefs lose their starting running back. They should be able to survive. Deebo Samuel, though, out for the San Francisco 49ers as well for quite some time. That's a big injury. But we got to talk about this Monday Night Football matchup because the Eagles absolutely choked this. And in my opinion, the coach is to blame. Nick Sirianni makes a big critical mistake late in that game. And my guy Gino over at Locked On Eagles is not happy about it.
All good things come to an end sometimes, except for the Philadelphia Eagles winning a close game against Kirk Cousins on Monday night when they had nearly a 100% chance to win the football game. I'm Gino Camilleri, host of the Locked On Eagles podcast, to tell you that the Eagles lose 22-21 against the Atlanta Falcons in a game where, according to Next Gen Stats, the Atlanta Falcons pulled off the 7th most improbable comeback since the year 2016. And if that doesn't tell you that you have a poorly coached football team, I don't know what will. Nick Sirianni, there's a lot of points in this football game. Not taking the 3 points early on, not handing the ball off to Saquon Barkley on third down, not going for it after Saquon Barkley drops the ball on third down. You have to look at the coaching staff. This was abysmal. Nick Sirianni, this might be it.
He's 100% right. I mean, that's a scathing review there from Gino, but not running that. Okay, taking the 3 points early in the game on 4th and 4 in the red zone, reprehensible, in my opinion. To count on your defense as an Eagles coach and say, hey, our defense that just gave up, 29 points to the Packers in week 1. Oh, our defense is going to hold them down. We don't need the points. We can risk it. No, you can't. No, you can't. And you're not on the goal line either. It's 4th and 4. Like, that is insane. But not running the football to Saquon Barkley at the end of that game, throwing that pass. I don't care who you run it to. Quarterback sneak it with Jalen Hurts. Maybe you get the yards if you run on third down there. Maybe you pick up the first. Maybe you score. That's possible if you run too. But more importantly, you run off 40 seconds of clock against a team that doesn't have any timeouts. Like, any Madden player 8 years or older knows you have to run the football there, like anybody. So to be that risky from Nick Sirianni in the position that he's in right now, where really he's on the hot seat in Philadelphia if they don't come back and have a strong year, just insanity. And I mean, we got to give some credit to Kirk O'Banks too. I've been killing Kirk Cousins the first few weeks, saying that they need to play Michael Penix, and Luke spent 3 minutes breaking down Kirk Cousins' footwork and the pistol and why it's not good, all of that. Well, Kirk Cousins came out there. It wasn't a clean game, but he came out there and was clutch Kirk in primetime. That's how crazy this choke was by the Eagles.
Yeah, I think on that last third down play, we want to blame Nick Sirianni, and I get it. Handing the ball off is the easy thing to do there. But the coach's job, right, is to put the players in a position to be successful. And the coach calls a play where the quarterback throws an accurate pass that hits a running back in the hands, and where if he catches that pass, he's got a first down and it's game over. Like the coach's job is to go out there and win the game. And he called a play that was perfectly set up to win the game. I mean, Sirianni can't make Saquon Barkley catch it, and Sirianni can't account for, I better not throw it to Barkley because he might drop it. Like, you have to trust your players in that moment to make a play. And everyone made a play on that play except for Saquon Barkley. So like, I definitely agree with, taking the points early in the game and like trying to trust your defense that, this defense you'd think should be better. They shouldn't give almost 7 yards per carry to Bijan Robinson and get 1 sack on maybe the most immobile quarterback in the NFL. Like, there was a lot that went wrong for the Philadelphia Eagles in this game, but sure. I find myself not harping on Sirianni. Like, it's one thing if for the third down decision, it's one thing if, okay, like Jalen Hurts throws a jump ball at the corner of the end zone or something stupid, if the play call is really just, they never had a chance to succeed. But like, if that ball hits Saquon Barkley in the hands, it might be a touchdown, and there's not even a chance of a Falcons comeback. At the very least, it's a first down if he catches that ball,
But stupid things happen. Stupid things happen when you play football. Lauren, I was always told 3 things can happen when you throw the ball, and 2 of them are bad. I don't care if it was a perfect pass. I don't care if Saquon Barkley had stick him on his hands and was ready. You cannot call a pass play there. You can't do it.
But if it works, he's the genius. You know what I mean? Like, are we playing the result or the process there? Like
I'm playing process. I think you're playing the results. You're saying, hey, the play was there. If he catches it, it's perfect. I'm saying I don't care what happens on that play. You can't throw it because that's bad process. So I will position myself as the process guy, Lauren.
Well, but he even though that play went wrong, you still got the ball back with 30 seconds left and timeout to drive downfield. And Nick Sirianni didn't throw the interception to Jesse Bates either. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not to be the Sirianni defender here because I don't think he's a great coach by any means, but like, I think we can kill him for the first 3 quarters. The end game decision making, I don't totally hate it here. Like, I get when you trust your big free agent signing at running back to catch a pass. Like, that was his whole thing, is he's a good receiving back out of the backfield. Like, trust your playmakers to make a play, and they let him down in that moment.
Yeah, that's fair, but I just think that it never should have come to that because it's too risky of a move. And you get what you get. That's what you get, Sirianni, for being like that. But we do got to give some credit to the Atlanta Falcons. I thought they really battled. Again, it wasn't a good game. It wasn't a clean game. It was an ugly game. They were down. I mean, Gino mentioned it. The Eagles had like a 99% chance to win that game, win probability at the end. So for the Eagles that's the kind of win right there that rights your ship and puts wind in your sails. And I gave the Falcons their credit. But the final thing that I want to say here, Lauren, is Mike Vrabel better keep his phone close to him because the Philadelphia Eagles are screaming for a Mike Vrabel. That's exactly what they're going to do if they get rid of Nick Sirianni anytime soon.
You go Vrabel over Bill Belichick there?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, I do. Yeah, Vrabel is piss and vinegar. He would be perfect in Philadelphia.
I think we could do a whole other Locked On NFL podcast about
right.
Head coach opening and who's going to be the first head coach fired. I mean, 9 penalties on the Eagles is another thing there. That's a coaching thing for sure.
Yeah.
I agree. Like, Sirianni's not getting the job done all around there.
Oh, man. Football season is in full swing, man. You're right. We could go for another 30 minutes here, but instead, I'll tell you to make sure that you tune in to the Barbershop later with Tony Wiggins as he breaks down more NFL stories with you. But that's going to do it for me, your host, the Madman Tyler Rowland, and my co-host, Lauren Cox. Thanks for tuning in to Locked On NFL. Get subscribed. Stay subscribed. It's your team every day here at the Locked On Podcast Network. And as I tell you guys, every show, stay safe out there.